Welcome to Long Box Diving, where we pull comics out of the long box. So, for this pull list, I read the first Superman comic I've read in a long time. The Trinity War arc does not count, because that was like a separate miniseries. As a solo comic, this has been the first one I've read in a long, long time. I've always been more of a Marvel person, just what I enjoy. This is the one that I picked up. I really enjoyed this comic. Oh, don't get that glare. Come on. I really enjoyed this comic. So Superman has gone into self-imposed exile, from what I've gleaned, because he feels responsible for destroying a city, a planet. I don't know. But he's in space. He's in exile in space. And it's a very slow comic, but I enjoyed it, and I'll tell you why. There was a lot of scientific thought behind it. Now I don't know how accurate it would be in a scientific like environment where it's actually studied, but it's very sci-fi in how it's presented, and I quite enjoyed it. And it also has self-deprecating humor, which I love. I love when a comic can recognize, hey, look, this is some comic book stuff, right? Take, for example, this. You have Clark Kent fixing a spaceship. Now, Clark Kent does not, well, Superman does not know how to fix a spaceship. Why would he? He was raised on Earth. We don't have a lot of spaceships. He's smart, sure, but that doesn't mean he should be able to fix a spaceship. But the comic calls it out. They give Superman the ability to say, hey, look, good thing Pa Kent told me how to fix a tractor. Now, and some other heavy machinery. Now, a spaceship isn't exactly like a tractor, but they all fall into the same principles. To go, it needs an engine. And an engine needs fuel. And so, like, they called out some of the comic book stuff that I love when a comic book can have that deprecating humor. That's like, yeah, I know, we're a comic book. This is some comic book logic. It's okay. It's okay. And Superman is in exile. And it's very... It's not your stereotypical, I'm the hero, Superman. Who, like, we always equate him to the Boy Scout. This is a Superman who is brooding and remorseful that something tragic in his past, he screwed up. He feels like he did something wrong. I don't know what it is because I haven't read that comic. Let me know in the comments down below what comic it was. What did he do? But he definitely has that remorse and he feels terrible. And it's definitely interesting to see a Superman who has that human emotion of, I am trying to deal with myself because I'm still not okay with what happened. Something in his past happened that has traumatized him, and he needs to deal with it. And that's a very human thing. Whether or not it was your fault or not, humans will say, yeah, I screwed up. They may have done nothing wrong, but they will say I screwed up, and they've got to figure out how to deal with that, you know. And when it's a whole planet being destroyed, you got to learn to. It's a little bit harder. But it was definitely a very interesting comic to read. I don't know if it was fun. I wouldn't call it fun, but it was very interesting as a piece of writing, because it definitely it's more character focused. It's definitely character focused. There's a whole lot of plot focused stuff with Lois Lane that I could not have been less interested in. Like, all of that, I'm like, I don't really care about all of Lois Lane's part here. She's uncovering some big story that's really important, and I'm sure we'll have ramifications down the road. But it's not character focused. It's plot focused. The comic part, the parts of this comic where it's focused just on Clark, on Superman. It's just focused on him and how he's interacting with the world and how he's dealing with his own burdens. I love that. That is what I wanted to see in this comic, and that's what I really enjoyed about this comic, is that character study of a remorseful Superman. I would not want to read the Superman every day, all day, right? That would get really hard to read, especially if he never grows or if he never overcomes his problem. But I really enjoyed this, and there's some cool stuff where, again, that science sci-fi discussions where he says he's gonna throw the spaceship so that way he gets a jump start, uses gravity to get a jump start. But he's like, I can lift it. If I try to throw it from this asteroid, it's gonna fly that way. I'm gonna fly backwards. No progress is gonna be made. So he has to take the spaceship and go to a nearby planet so he can then toss it where there's just enough gravity to hold Superman without him flying backwards. That's some good scientific thought, and I love that. And so it was a very interesting comic that I enjoyed reading. It had that thought, and like Superman ends up landing on a planet that's empty, that's full of nothing, and his supervillain that he's been tracking, or that he's familiar with for this arc, was on this planet, so he's going to track it down. But I don't care about that. I wanted to see this character dealing with his emotions, and that's what I got, and that's what I really enjoyed about this one. I'll see you next time in the long box.